In this video, I'm going to explain the idea that changing sense can be bad if your goal is to improve in one game specifically, and why that idea is wrong. So basically what this idea is saying is that top players and aim trainers change their sense all the time. That's necessary, you can't be good at every scenario on one sense. However, a lot of pros and a lot of FPS games, particularly mainstream ones, refuse to change their sense. Now we know of definitely some pros who change their sense frequently, but the vast majority of pros, we have almost no access to their settings and their practice routines, so this is really only a few pros we can compare to a few other pros. Now some people who were really just trying to find the fastest way to improve came up with this idea that if your goal is skill across games or in aim trainers, you should change your sense, but if your goal is skill in one game, just play with that one sense in that game. Now this argument comes with two pretty big issues. The first is that these people don't really understand the purpose of sense changes. A lot of people understand that you won't lose your skill, you'll be able to adapt to a new sense pretty fast, and they don't really look into sensitivity past this. Sense changes come with a variety of benefits besides re-optimization for a specific scenario or game. They can allow you to isolate specific issues, challenge yourself, increase focus, and therefore improve your skill more quickly. For example, if you run 15 centimeters per 360 instead of like 50, you'll find yourself much more challenged, and you'll find your fingers and wrist to be much more prevalent in your aim, allowing you to train these motions and improve. If you run like 100 centimeters per 360, you'll find you have to move your mouse really fast, allowing you to train your maximum speed and controlling your arm at fast paces. Isolating both these skills will cause you to aim a lot better on your main Valorant sense of like maybe 50 centimeters per 360. Now before I get into the second reason of this, if you like this kind of content, make sure you subscribe for more. Now the second issue with this whole argument to not change your sense is a lot more interesting in my opinion, and also kind of a rant. It's that pro players in a lot of TAC FPS games don't really always know the optimal ways to improve, especially for aim. There's definitely variation between them, like Pengu who knows it's good to frequently change your sense, and Simple who's afraid of new mice. But the one thing that really any pro gamer has in common with the others is that they play more than basically anyone who has any form of responsibilities outside of gaming, and they started gaming at a really early age. This means that yes, they have a lot of experience, but they also have a ton of hours of practice. So something that isn't completely optimal for improving won't hold them back because they have 20 years of doing that inefficient practice. If my practice is somehow 3 times more efficient than yours, but you have like 50 times my hours, it's pretty obvious you'll be the better player. Missing out on all the benefits of sense changes that people have been finding in recent years isn't going to hurt you much when you have so many hours. Also, the amount of FPS pros who do or don't do something is usually overcalculated. A lot of people say that no good player will change their sense. We know this isn't true. Pengu, Shroud, Tens. And then they say, okay, that's 3 examples and everyone else doesn't do that. But the thing is, we don't know what 90% of pros are doing with their settings and training other than what we can find online, which is just one set of settings that they used in a tournament or submitted to that website or whatever. These pros very well could frequently change their settings, especially in practice, or they could not. We really don't know unless they're very vocal about not changing their settings, which is probably a minority compared to all of the pro gamers in the world. Now, a lot of people are really overestimating the role of aim in games. Is pretty much every pro better than me at raw aim at the moment? Yeah, sure, I accept that. They have 20 years of practice that I don't have. But at the same time, Pro League and really any modern TAC FPS and really most games isn't a duel of raw aim. It's a duel of movement, crosshair placement, teamwork, decision making, utility, and raw aim's probably less important than all of these. I have a few friends who've pretty consistently hit Radiant and have either been on or are still on legitimate semi-pro teams playing against real pro teams in Valorant, so these guys' practices probably look a decent bit like what pro team practices look like as they're playing Valorant full time. They literally devote like 4 to 6 hours to really just looking into strategy, not even playing the game every day, on top of also like playing the game obviously. There's just about no time in these guys' day to be keeping up with aim theory, so a lot of people in this position will just go with what everyone's always done since the early CS days. Obviously, my friends are people who found my channel for aim tips, and when they reached out to me, I found out that they really couldn't even afford to aim train for more than like an hour without losing sleep. People with that kind of schedule don't have the time to be testing out new aim theories when aim is already such a small part of their success, so a lot of them just settle with what's always been done instead of trying something new that may or may not work. The pros who give the most advice are also streamers just because they have the most platform to give advice. These people are basically working 2 full-time jobs with streaming and pro play, so it's really hard for them to make time to relearn ideas about aim improvement. Since sense changes really became popular with the rise of Kovaaks and AimLab in like 2018, most pros learned to aim without ever changing their sense, and really learned everything about aim when changing sense wasn't seen as a viable option. So these reasons are why pros still aren't changing their sense, not because it's not a viable aim tactic. If you actually stuck around to the end of my rant, first of all, thanks a ton for watching. Second of all, subscribe for more videos like this.